It's time we said goodbye to our wonderful Distant Shores 2. A number of people have asked us if we sold Distant Shores 2 and what has happened to her. So in this video we're going to update you and say a proper goodbye after all the miles we sailed her and so many memories. We're also going to talk about hurricanes and yacht insurance, and yes, that's related to what's happened to Distant Shores 2. First, some background. Distant Shores 2 is a Southerly 49, built in 2009 in the south of England. We did a shakedown cruise there in the spring, getting familiar with sailing her and exploring the local culture. Like all Southerly yachts, she has a swinging keel and is beachable, so we tested it out by beaching her to visit the pub up one of the inlets. Our first foreign cruise was across the English Channel to Guernsey in the Channel Islands, where large tides are part of daily life. We experienced the biggest tides we've ever seen, up to nearly 40 feet, and spent an evening on the lovely beach at Herm Island. That year we headed north across the North Sea through Holland, Germany, and Denmark, and had enough perky sailing to feel confident in the new boat for offshore work. We got as far as Sweden's Stockholm archipelago before coming back through the Yacht Canal. The next spring we headed north to Ireland and Scotland, then across the North Sea to Norway, and our most northern point we've ever sailed in the Sonja Fjord. Probably our most varied cruising year ever, we took the mast down so we could go up the Seine River to Paris, where we found a tunnel that ran 2 kilometers under the very streets of the city, probably the most surreal thing we've ever done on our boat. Then all the way across France via the French Canals, going through 179 locks and even across a couple of aqueducts, bridges for boats. We made 5 episodes of our Distant Shores television show dedicated to the journey across France, and countless viewers have told us these are their favorite episodes. See the link to Vimeo in the description below for our complete Season 9 videos, including the French Canals. After 10 weeks filming in France, we emerged into the Mediterranean Sea and raised the mast again. Then in that same year we stopped at Morocco before crossing the Atlantic. We spent the next year exploring the Caribbean and discovering some new favorite anchorages before heading up to our old favorite cruising ground of the Bahamian Out Islands. The otherworldly blues and greens of the Bahamas' shallow water are a favorite for us, and with our shallow draft there are many more places we can go in this large cruising ground. After a few months exploring here, we set off on the upwind course back to the Caribbean. Check out that trip in the link above. After all that shallow water exploration, we set off on our longest voyage on Distant Shores 2, a circle of the Atlantic Ocean, first sailing over 2,000 miles from the Caribbean to the Azores, then on to Madeira and the Canary Islands, before heading to the Cape Verde Islands and on for our fastest transatlantic ever, 11 days to make the 2,200 miles to St. Lucia in the Caribbean. Check the link above. With our new project for Distant Shores 3 in the works, we sold Distant Shores 2 in the Caribbean to good friends Doug and Maggie, who had sailed with us in various places and knew the boat well. Doug was on the crew for our 7th transatlantic crossing. Unfortunately, the new base for the boat in Sint Maarten would put her in line to be hit by the most powerful hurricane the Caribbean has ever seen. As news from the islands came out, we found video online that appeared to show boats had toppled onto her. Right after the storm, we were in Southampton at the boat show and discussed hurricane coverage with Mike Hulpert, our longtime insurance agent at Pantaenius Yacht Insurance UK, who have insured our boats since 1998.
We're talking today with Mike Hulpert from Pantaenius Yacht Insurance.
Warning drivers, cars, please calling all cars. Please remove all vehicles in readiness for show opening immediately. Thank you.
It's a sausage joke.
Yes. Okay. And take two.
Okay.
Yes, we're here at the time just following Hurricane Irma and Maria yesterday. Maybe we could talk a little bit about hurricane coverage. We have a lot of questions about that through our various social media sites.
Yeah.
What is the best way to prepare a boat for a hurricane? I mean, not be in the hurricane zone, I guess, is the first best step.
Southampton, yeah.
Yes.
Bury it under 4 feet of concrete. No, but seriously though, we can cover hurricane or named storm damage anywhere in the Caribbean, provided the boat is stored in a manner described in our clauses.
Right.
And basically, if it's a monohull, it has to be in a one-piece cradle, and it has to be tied down to hard points in the ground, and obviously all the canvas taken off to reduce windage to a minimum. Catamaran is obviously easier because all you're going to do then is tie it down. If the tanks are full to make the boat heavier, that's obviously going to help.
Right, good point. Yeah.
And with your boat, with its lifting keel, of course, it's much easier to store it more safely because you obviously lift the keel, drop the boat right down, less windage, easier to tie it down.
And actually, our former Southerly Distant Shores 2 just came through in St. Maarten.
Yeah.
It stood upright with the keel retracted, but unfortunately other boats around it fell down, so there was some damage to it. But what is the coverage in that case? I mean, if your boat is set up properly?
Well, I think when the conditions are as overwhelming as they were there, then there's really no liability claims against everyone else. You know, you just get your own boat repaired looked after by your own insurer. That's
With a category 1.5 or 2, I'd want to sail her south.
Yeah, exactly. Because 180 miles an hour. I mean, there were containers blowing over, shipping containers blowing over. The damage is immense, and obviously we've got a lot of boats out there which are damaged, and the logistics of getting them repaired in the areas where the whole islands are devastated is going to be a challenge.
We always alert our insurance company to our plans. Doug did the same, and this was an approved and well-run boatyard. We visited Sint Maarten with Doug, Distant Shores 2 new owner, a few weeks after the storm to see if we could help assess the damage.
Scratch on the fiberglass, a little messed up here, but the grounding plate took the force of it.
And boatyard manager Tim describes what happened.
Yeah, we clocked 235 mile an hour winds on the front side of the storm. On the back side of the storm, we clocked 255 mile an hour gusts. It was just devastation. Where we were in Beacon Hill, I saw houses actually just crumble and just come crash over our house. And it was a scary moment. We're in a concrete building, and I was laying in the hallway because I could feel the concrete rattling. It's wicked outside. Wow, the doors almost busted. So this yard here, we got about 4 feet or 4.5 feet of storm surge, and as you can see, it's pretty flat to the runway. So there's, it literally went all the way. That would be on the front side, and then on the back side of the storm, it probably came the other way. So, we had weather coming from back and forth for sure.
During the hurricane, the high water storm surge lifted boats right up across the road and over to the runway. If catamarans up to 50,000 pounds can be flipped by the force of the wind, we need to rethink how bad a hurricane can be.
We had a pretty large surge come in the lagoon through the yard, about maybe 4 feet or so, 4.5 feet. Your boat was set pretty low because of the no keel. So we feel that the boat must have lifted up in the surge and probably was pushed over a few feet. Yeah, it looks like for the most part we did pretty good, but it did move the boat over quite a few feet. I think we'll get it lifted up, and you guys can inspect the bottom and we put it back in its right spot.
So the concern is that the boat was floating and banging on the concrete. And if the corners of some of these wall pieces got through the fiberglass, that's what I'm concerned about.
So this boat fell over and then landed on this boat, which fell over and then nearly missed hitting Distant Shores 2, which had already drifted away a little bit.
There were pieces of this wall blew around in the storm, if you can believe it. You can't even lift them. Can't even shift it. The storm blew these around and the boat landed on them, but it didn't damage the boat either.
Fog painting.
But, I mean, it's just really just this little bit of fiberglass in this.
Safer than I think.
Yeah.
From our first look, Distant Shores 2 survived the banging quite well. No structural damage, but some pretty good gouges and scrapes that can be repaired pretty easily.
A lot of scrapes on the bottom, but most of it's all on the strong points on the landing plate for this keel.
Yeah, that's how it's designed to do, to land onto that. And that, of course, is mammothly strong and almost 2 inches thick of cast iron, so it's not going to have any problems.
Scraped the ends off a couple of through hulls up there, but overall we came out quite well compared to a lot of boats around here. Shows the strength of the hull on this thing. No, I was worried more about the wind and trying to get it tied down low. And it never even occurred to me that there'd be 4 feet of water in the
yard with waves.
Yeah,
Incredible. Well, she's a very, very tough boat.
yeah.
Pantaenius are looking after the insurance claim, and Distant Shores 2 is on the road to recovery. And so is Sint Maarten. The island has greened up, boats are back in the anchorages, and we ask our friend Rene if it's a good thing that people should come to visit yet.
Come down to the island and visit to help? Does that help, or?
People have to come down more and more because it really helps the locals to tell the stories, which in turn helps them recover, it seems. Cruises are coming back, they're scared. We've had, I don't know, I must have had 50 emails or so. Should we come to St. Maarten or not? Of course, the answer is yes. Working at a chandlery, our sales are down, but really they're not down that much. They're down a small percentage, rather than like 50% or whatever. We're not where last year was, but you know we're surviving.
So there's still facilities, you know,
Supplies.
services, supplies. I see the grocery stores open.
Yeah, no, everything is there, and we hope more and more cruises will come back.
So thanks again to Distant Shores 2 for 7 years of sailing and all those great miles we traveled aboard her. It's only a few weeks now until we climb aboard our new Distant Shores 3 in England and begin a whole new cruising chapter. So hit that subscribe button to come along with us on that new journey. In the meanwhile, why not check out our earlier adventures crossing oceans, or exploring the Bahamas, or testing out anchors.